Welcome. I'm excited to get to be with you guys tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Pastor Daniel, and I'm normally here on Wednesdays, but I'm not normally the one teaching on Wednesdays, so I'm excited to get to share with you guys today. I want to talk about some lost things. Does anybody ever lose things? All right, the rest of you may have lost your mind. Okay, but I think all of us lose things at some point. It's just a matter of how frequently and what we lose. And if you have enough memory to remember what you lost. But I got thinking about these different things because of the parables that I get to look at tonight. As we've been going through, looking at a bunch of Jesus' parables. But he shares 3 parables in one chapter about losing things. And I think the things that you lose probably the most frequently that leave you scrambling is probably this or this. In particular, when you leave this on silent or the battery dies. Because the nice thing about the phone is normally you can call it, unless you're single and home alone. In which case, hopefully you can call out to Google or Siri and ask it a question and get it to respond. That's always my trick when I leave my phone somewhere. I'm like, I know it's in this room, so if I just walk in and address Google, it will respond to me. And it won't always answer a question, but if you ask it to tell a joke, my phone will start talking. And then you're like, all right, where's the joke coming from? It's like, well, look, it's in between the couch cushions. But as I got thinking about this, I realized there's a lot of things that we can lose. I lost a phone really, really good once. I was getting ready to propose to my wife, and I had this elaborate plan. And this elaborate plan took us on this hike. Well, actually, a blizzard altered my elaborate plan, which took us on a hike snowshoeing. And we started bundled up because it was all cold. And then we're hiking through the forest trying to find this little shack that I had wrapped with Christmas lights and had my folks set stuff up. And we got really hot. So we start pulling off our gloves and jackets, and we're carrying half the stuff. And our phones stopped working because it was getting too cold. So I stuck them in one of the mittens to try to help keep them from the battery getting too cold. Well, it starts getting dark while we're going, and I tripped on a log, and somewhere's in there, when this is all said and done, I propose, she says yes. I'm like, yes! And then we're she wants to call people, and I'm like, and where are the phones? And they were in the red mitten somewhere. But I was one red mitten short, and the one that had the phones wasn't. So we actually had to go back the next day because we couldn't find him in the dark. Can you put up that picture? So this is when we went and found our phones. Look, we have the phones. Get a picture. We hiked back and followed our tracks in the snow and found the red mitten. But it was not a panic. It was you know what? We can come back tomorrow. There'll be light. But I've lost other things. Can you put up that next picture? So that's my son. That's a while ago. But this was our oldest. And when he was about that big, we lost him. We had just bought a house, and we're doing some stuff there, and he's in our yard, and we're a good ways off from the road. So you're not staring at him the whole time. You're we've got plenty of yard. We've got an acre of yard. Just run around and play. You're 2. This is a good place for you. And then we're working on stuff and moving stuff around, and all of a sudden, he is gone. And we're like, did he go in with you? And she's like, no, I thought he was out with you. And so then it's this search. And so all right, you check the house. I'm going to check the road. First you run to the most dangerous spot. And you're where could they possibly be? And you run to the road. They're not there. And you're okay. Then they're not in the house. They're not in the car. They're not answering. And we're trying to figure it out. And finally, I'm listening. I'm like, stop, listen. And I hear a loud machine. I'm like, behind our house, there's yard, brush, a little bit of woods, drops down to it depends how wet it is, whether it's a swamp or not, and then back up a hill on the other side, and there was someone building a house up there. And all of a sudden I'm like, did he just make it through the forest to the neighbor's house. And so you like get out there on top of the hill and you look over and you're like, yes, there's this little guy like this big about to go get by the giant tractors that are moving the dirt. And so then you're like flying through the stuff and I got him and he did not get run over. We were good. But losing my son was a lot scarier than losing my phone. The urgency was really, really different when it comes to finding my son as opposed to finding my phone. And when I started looking at this, we're going to be in Luke chapter 15. Jesus tells the parable, or he tells 3 parables about these lost things. And so he starts out, and it's the story of the lost sheep. And many of you guys have grown up in church. Many of you have heard this before. But if you haven't, let me give a little context and share a story with you. Jesus is there, and he is loving on people. But there are some people that he's loving on that have really bad reputations. They are not the top of society. And some of the other people are like, what? Jesus, you are really cool. Why would you hang out with them? And they start voicing it, and they're like, do you know what that guy's done? Do you know what he did to that family? Do you know what she's done? Do you know? And they're going on, and Jesus, his response was to tell them a story. And he goes, so if a shepherd has got 100 sheep and one of them disappears, what's he going to do? And everyone's like, well, he just looks at him and he goes, will he not? He goes, you know that he's not going to look and go 99 out of 100, that's a passing grade, I'm good to go. He's going to sit here and go, no, where's my lost sheep? And he's going to leave the 99, he's going to try to bunch him up there so he doesn't lose more sheep, and then he's going to go tracking and go, where did the lost sheep go? And then he's going to find it, and when he finds it, he's not going to get mad and kick it. He's not going to go, you stupid sheep, how come you left me, and beat it up. He goes, he's going to grab the sheep, he's going to put it on his shoulders so it can't wander off and so that he can make it back to the rest of his sheep before they get lost. And he goes through, he goes, you expect the shepherd to value his sheep enough that he would go find the one that was missing. Even though there's 99 that aren't missing, you expect him to go look for the one. And apparently they didn't get it. Because if they had fully grasped the concept, I think he might have just moved on. But I don't know if they were still looking at him like weird, if they were looking at him in judgment, because they're like, yeah, cool, that's a sheep, but that guy stinks. But that girl's immoral. But that guy's a crook. But that guy stole from me when I was supposed to pay taxes. He charged me double. And I don't know, but Jesus, he moves on. And he tells a story. He goes, okay, so what if there's a lady? And the lady's in the house, and she's got her money. And she's happy to have her money. It's a good thing to have. And then she loses one of her 10 coins. Now, these coins, I looked it up. I was like, well, how much was one of these coins worth? And if I convert it based on the U.S. Census something or others, $250 would be today's equivalent of what one of those coins would have been worth. And he goes, what if she loses it? Like, she's going to look for it. Right? And he's like, yeah, we're going to look for it. She's going to start sweeping the place. She's going to move the furniture. Anyone ever do that? Like, you lose something and you're like moving furniture? Yeah. I have a gift. I have lost magical items. And I say that they're magical because there is no place to lose it and still it disappears. And you're in like an empty room and you had a pencil and then all of a sudden you're like, I need my pencil. Where'd it go? You're like, there is literally nowhere. And somehow it just, anyways. So she's looking all over the place. And he goes through and he says, well, when she finds it, she's going to throw a party. And that always baffled me. I'm like, do you realize that parties are expensive? And like this Dutch side of me comes out and you're like, You're excited that you found your money, so you're going to go spend your money. Anyways, I'm just like trying to wrap my mind around this. But he was trying to make a point. When the shepherd found the sheep, he said he'd throw a party. When the woman found the coin, he said she'd throw a party. And then he likened it, and he goes on in verse 7 and verse 10. He goes, just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need for repentance. And then with the coin, he says, I tell you, there's more joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And so as I'm looking at these two stories, and I saw a pattern starting to emerge. There was something that was lost. There was something that was searched for. There was something that was found, and there was a party. And I started just kind of like, all right, so we have this lost, search, find, party. And then in each spot, when he talks about the sinner, he talks about repent. And so I started kind of like mulling over this in my head, because that's just what you do. But there's a third story. And the third story covers the pattern, but the third story goes further. And so if you're not familiar with the third story, it's found in it starts in verse 11. He says, there's a dad, and he's got two sons. And I've got sons. I love having kids, and you know that your kids are different. But as I looked at this, I thought about calling it two brothers and a lie. Because there's two brothers with same goal, different method, one lie. So these two brothers, they're after the same thing. They want to party, they want acceptance, they want value. But the younger brother, he looks at dad and he's like, Dad's got lots of stuff, but I'm just like in the shadows over here. He's like, I want a party. I think my best, shortest route to a party is getting away from Dad with my share of the inheritance. And he's like, Dad, you are taking too long to expire. I would like my share of the inheritance now. And you kind of expect Dad to be like, come here. Bam! What are you thinking? Like, I just expect, and like if you look at their culture, you expect the father to like this is not quite stone him, but maybe like this is like serious. The level of disrespect that this son has just showed his father is absolutely astounding, and you expect the father to respond appalled and with opposition. Or that's what I would expect. But the father goes, all right. And it says that he divides the inheritance between the two boys. So he divides up his stuff, and the younger son gets it, and it says that a short time later, he left. So I don't know if that means, hey, Dad just gave me 1,000 sheep. 1,000 sheep do not travel very well. So I can't leave town until I sell 1,000 sheep. So whatever, but he liquidates his portion of the inheritance, and he is out. And he heads out, and he gets somewhere, and he's like, I've got money, I got friends. I'm going to party, I'm going to buy the drinks. People are showing up. Everyone wants to be my friend. Maybe it's because I'm buying, but hey, it's great. And he's having a blast for a while. But eventually, he runs out of money, and he runs out of friends. And about the same time, a famine hits the land. And they say, well, this is bad timing. So now work is really hard. And he's looking around, and the one thing that a Jewish boy didn't want to do was take care of pigs. Because to them, pigs were unclean. They were like just that's just disgusting. But the only job he can find, taking care of pigs. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to take care of pigs. And he gets over there and he starts taking care of pigs. But they are not taking very good care of him. So much so that he's sitting there like feeding the pigs, staring at the pigs' food. And he thinks to himself, if only they would give me some of the pigs' food. That's messed up. And then it says, and then he came to his senses. And I love that. You're sitting there doing something stupid. And then in verse 17, and when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have more than enough bread? And like, this is stupid. I was a son, I had everything, and then I was an idiot, and now I have nothing. Maybe, just maybe, there's no way Dad would take me back. But maybe he would let me be a servant. Maybe, I don't know if you ever like see the gears turning and like almost see what someone's thinking. I just see him going, maybe Dad would get the satisfaction of seeing me now as the servant. Like revenge on me and my stupidity. Maybe, and so he like practices his speech. And anyone ever like apologize ahead of time in your head like 5 times to figure out how it's going to go? Okay, maybe just me. So you get there and you have this conversation that you know is going to be difficult, and it's like playing in your head. So he's mapping it out. He's like, okay, I'm going to come up to Dad, and I'm going to tell him, Dad, I've sinned against God, and I've sinned against you. I'm not even worthy to be your son. But just make me like one of your hired servants. Like, can I just have a job and maybe bread instead of pig slop? Like, and he's got this thing mapped out. And he begins to head home. And when he begins to head home, it's a bit of a journey. But when he gets near home, it says his father saw him a long way off. And now, this starts this picture. Dad didn't kick him to the curb and go, good riddance. Dad's watching the road. And when he sees him, he doesn't go, oh, that ungrateful fool. I heard about what he did with everything that I gave him. It says that Dad starts running down the road to his son. And the son sees it. And I'm just like picturing the son going, what's he going to do? Am I going to get punched? Are the rest of the servants going to come out? What are they going to do to me? Am I going to be allowed back? Am I going to be I disowned Dad. What's he going to do? And when he runs up, and the son's like, okay, I got my speech. Hey, Dad, I'm sorry. I've sinned against God. I've sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And Dad just interrupts him and just hugs him. And I can just imagine the confusion on the boy's face. Going, this is not what I expected. And the father hugs him. And then the father goes through and goes, all right, hey, get him a coat. Get him some shoes. Get him the best coat. Get him shoes. Bring a ring and put it on his finger. Kill the fatted calf. And I got studying some of this, and it seems shocking. First off, it doesn't say kill a fatted calf. It says kill the fatted calf. Do you realize that a calf does not become the fatted calf overnight? So I recently heard from a farmer in Texas that it was like a 6 to 8 week process of fattening a calf, of getting them in, feeding them lots and lots, and keeping them in a stall so they're not walking around, so they just put on the weight and are really tender. The fatted calf. Does that mean the father had planned on his son's return? Does that mean he's been looking forward to this? How many fatted calves got too old and weren't fatted calves anymore? How many times did he start over? How many nights, how many evenings, how many days has Father sat on the porch watching the road? And this just kind of began to shock me. But then when I started hearing about the robe and these different things, there was so much meaning in each of them. And it began to shock me. But he goes to have a party. And in this party, they start throwing the party, and the music's playing, they're eating the calf, and his brother starts to come back. And when his brother comes back, he's like, I hear a party. What's going on? And one of the servants comes out, he's like, hey, it's such good news. Your brother is back. And he's like, good news? Doofus is back? Like, don't you remember what he did? And if you have sons, if you have sons that are near in age, the odds are that there is a lot of competition between them. And there's a lot of rivalry. So when one of them goes and does something stupid, the other one's like, I'm winning. That's just kind of like how it seems to work. So Big Brother, who was now winning and hoping for the favor, is like, what do you mean they're throwing a party? And at this point, we've seen something get lost, something searched for, and something found. So we've seen the pattern that we saw in the first two parables, but Jesus doesn't in the parable when the younger son got greeted, or even when they threw a party. And see that the father, the older brother wouldn't go into the party because he was so mad. The father leaves the party to go to the older brother. And when he gets to the older brother's like, what is this? I've slaved for you. I have served you, or slaved for you, depending on your translation. This is verse 29. And I've never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I may celebrate with my friends. The father responds, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for your brother who was dead is alive, and now he's found. This conversation is mind-blowing. Because here's the thing. His brother, little brother, goes, I'm not worthy to be a son. Big brother says, I have worked hard and I have never disobeyed. But yet you haven't given me a goat. He goes, I've worked so hard, aren't I worthy? See, both brothers were trying to earn being a son. And the father looks at the older brother and goes, all that I have is yours. This was not a metaphor. If you remember in the beginning of the story, what did he do with all of his stuff? He divided it between the two of them. So this is what's weird. The older brother was mad that when he felt like he earned it, Dad didn't give him what was already his. And I look and I go, that seems stupid. Like it does. If I already gave it to you, why are you complaining that I don't re-give you what's already now yours? But as Christians, I think we do it all the time. We sit here and go, you know what? Maybe if I'm good enough, then God will want to answer my prayer. Maybe if I'm good enough, then God could use me. Maybe if I'm good enough, if I do enough, then God will like me. Then God will be happy with me. Then God, and we put all of these things, and God goes, do you realize I want you to be my son and not my slave? I'm inviting you into a relationship. But see, the brother was like, you know what? Maybe if I work hard enough, and he wanted to do this in the land of comparison. Going, how do I compare to my brother? See, I compare by doing more than him. And when he comes, I want to point out how much he's failed to show you the gap between his performance and my performance. And so he sits here and he goes, but you haven't given me a skinny goat, but you gave this son of yours who devoured your wealth with prostitutes and with parties a fatted calf. Has anyone ever heard of someone in the church being judgmental? Trying to point out somebody else's failures and flaws? It's the big brother. But the sad thing is the big brother fell for the same lie as the little brother. Both of them going, well, maybe they related to their father based on their performance. He says, I want to relate to you as a son. He wanted to give them authority. He wanted to give them identity. And as I look at this, I think so many of us are there. And we're trying to find our identity by looking at our past, by looking at our report card, by looking at those around us. If you are really smart and you have wrong information, and you make a decision, you will have a stupid outcome. Smart people with wrong information end up with a messed up outcome. These guys were smart, but they had the wrong information. They tried to answer the question of sonship based on what they'd earned. He goes, you're not my son because of what you earned. I go through this with my kids on a regular basis. I'll tell them, you know why I love you? Because you're my son. Because you're my daughter. Like, yeah. How long will you be my son? They're like, always? Yeah. When you're happy, when you're sad, when you're mad or when you're glad, when you win or when you lose, when you're right or when you're wrong, you will always be my son. You will always be my daughter. And I will always love you. But so many of us have grown up in a culture that glorifies performance, and possibly with parents whose approval seemed to only come when we achieved, that we've thought that God only loves us when we achieve. And we've fallen for the lie that every time that we failed, that every time that we thought we weren't good enough, that every time that somebody rejected us, that was who we were. But when the father went to the boy who messed up everything, he didn't say, all right, hey, I'm glad you're back. You can be a servant. He gave him shoes that were provision and goes, let me take care of you and let me meet your needs. He gave him a robe. A robe, the best robe, in a lot of these cultures will speak of their identity. Go to a bunch of these different countries, they'll have different stitching, different embroidery depending on where they're from. He gave him some identity, and he gave him a ring. And a ring was not a decorative piece of jewelry. A ring was a mark of authority. See, they would use a ring, and you guys have probably seen old school movies or something where some king seals a letter with a ring. It's his signature. When he gave him a ring, he was reinstating his family's signature. You're like, but he hasn't proven anything yet, except for that he's kind of an idiot. And Dad goes, no. Welcome home, my son. And he goes through, and when he shares this, It's amazing. When he shares this, it's freeing. And when you look at, when I begin to go over this, it challenged me as a son, going, God, that's how you see me? Because it's so hard when you fail not to see yourself through the lens of your failure. Revelation chapter 12 talks about the devil and calls him the accuser of the brethren. He sits here and goes, you failed, so you are a failure. You messed up, so this is who you are. But it challenged me as a father, going, do my kids think that my love is conditional? And I looked, and when Jesus was on earth, you see the Father speak a couple of times. And you know what you hear a couple of times? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. The Father wanted to speak affirmation. Find it surprising that you don't hear a whole lot and then you hear that twice. And that he wants to speak that over you. And it's powerful. But he didn't, when Jesus shared this, there was the lesson for us as the son, because I think most of us could identify as the older or younger son. And we go, oh, I get so caught up trying to earn it. And he goes, no. I want to give it. But the people that were around Jesus that he told this story to, he told them because he goes, I want you to understand my mission is to love them and to find my lost children. And if you're one of his lost children, he's looking for you. He loves you. And he wants a relationship with you oh so bad. If you say, I've already been found, I know Jesus, he says, great. I have a mission for you. I have lost children. And when a father has a lost child, everything else goes on pause. He's not looking at the clock going, am I going to go to work today? Wonder what traffic's going to be like. He's going, where's my kid? And if you're around when someone's kid goes missing, you are instantly recruited. Unless they think you're a villain. As long as you are not the villain they're trying to protect them from, they're like, all right, help me. My son is missing. I'm going to check the road. I'm going to check here. Can you check around the back? Can you check in the car? And you just send everybody. When Jesus was going back up to heaven, you know what he did? He sent him. And he said, go into all the world and tell them about me. I want you to share this with everybody. Because I have children that I love that are lost. And I'm sitting and I'm waiting and I'm watching and I'm calling and I want them back, and when they come back, I'm going to throw a party. And so I want to challenge you. If you already have been found. If you haven't, I want to invite you. And there may be some that are lost, like the younger brother, who are off just partying and doing their own thing. And there may be some here who say, you know what, I'm like the older brother. I'm working really hard, trying to do everything to earn it. And God goes, but I just want to give it. I want to invite you to be my son, not my slave. I want to invite you to be my daughter. I want to invite you into a relationship. Can everyone bow their heads and close their eyes? If you're here and you say, today, I want to make Jesus the Lord of my life. I want to be found. I want to be in relationship with the Father. I want to know that I'm right with him and on my way to heaven. I'm going to count to 3. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. If you're online, you can type in, "That's me." Get ready. 1, 2, 3. Say, "I want to make Jesus the Lord of my life." Awesome. See your hand. Who else says, "That's me"? I want to make Jesus the Lord of my life. Awesome. All right. We're going to say a simple prayer. The Bible says whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. As we've come to our senses, we turn to him. So if you've done this before, or you just raised your hand, go ahead and join me as we declare him to be our Lord. Say, "Jesus, thank you for loving me, even when I make mistakes. I'm sorry for my sins. I believe that you died and rose again, that your blood set me free. I choose to live for you from this day forward. I declare that you are my Lord. In Jesus' name, amen." Awesome. Give them a really big hand.
Thank you.
If you made that decision, please text Res yes. I'll let you take over.
Yes, please text Res yes to the number 94,000. And guys, we're up here too, and we would love to connect with you in person. If you're here for prayer, you need someone just to stand with you in faith and agree in faith with you. There'll be some people up front here. There's people in the back at guest services that want to stand in faith with you and pray as well. If you're new or even just recently checking out Res for the first time, we're also down here. We're also in the back at guest services, and we want to connect with you. So come say hi. Thank you for participating in service tonight, online and in person. We just love that you're here. If you are here or online and you're prepared to give and sow into what the Lord is doing here at Res and through Res, you can do that by going to reslife.org/give. You can also text Res Give to the number 94,000, or you can give in cash and check at the black boxes that are out in the lobby. But coming up this Saturday, we have a special opportunity, a special day-long event starting at 9. I believe we have a slide. It's called Immersed. This is going to be a fantastic day to rest in the Lord, to discover what that rest is, discover what it can help you do, what it can help you be, and to just hear what the Lord is saying to you today. So if that sounds interesting, you can find out more information at reslife.org/events. There is a $15 charge. We're going to be having some food there, and that just helps kind of cover that cost. But it's a fantastic time. Coming up this weekend, again, on Sunday, we'd love to see you there. We have Sam and Becca Vander Klok. They're going to be sharing the word with us. And then don't forget to come back next week, Wednesday. We got our very own Ricky Lung out and back. Stop by and say hi to him before you go. But that's it for us for tonight. We're so glad that you are here. And again, we'll be up here and we'll be in back. So come say hi. We love you guys, and we'll see you soon.